Over the past 20 years or so, the city of Jos, the capital of Plateau state in central Nigeria, has experienced regular and brutal outbreaks of violence. This violence is often reported as religious antagonism between Christians and Muslims. But for some, the root cause is the Nigerian government's consistent inability to address the social, economic and tribal differences of its people. In the most recent outbreak on March the 7th, most of those killed were women and children. With acting President Goodluck Jonathan in the process of reshuffling his cabinet and President Yar'Adua still on sick leave, Africa Today asks, why is Nigeria seemingly incapable of averting religious and ethnic conflicts?
About 500 lives were reported to have perished in the second string of attacks since January in Jos. Jos, the capital city of Central Plateau State in Nigeria, lies at the geographical fault line between the country's Muslim north and Christian south. Authorities believe the attacks on 3 Christian villages in the city were an act of retribution carried out by members of the Muslim Fulani community.
We had guns shot, then we had phone calls from the people of this area, calling us to come assist them. By the time we nearby, we had the sound of the guns.
We have requested for reinforcement and have been reassured by the Inspector General that reinforcement is on its way.
After security forces ignored warnings of the imminent attacks, they have arrested about 200 people and charged 49 with murder.
Hello and welcome to Africa Today. I'm Vuyiswa talking to you from Press TV's London studios. Once again, tragic events have us turning our focus towards Africa's troubled giant, Nigeria. Many are praying and hoping that good governance can be realized in this resource-rich, vibrant country of 150 million people. Here with me to share their considerable knowledge about the contradictions facing Nigeria are Femi Okutubo, the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Trumpet newspaper, Mohammed Umar, a Nigerian writer, and on the phone we're pleased to welcome from Jos in Nigeria, Chris Kwaja, a lecturer and researcher at the Center for Conflict Management and Peace at Jos University. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
If I could start with you, Chris, there in Jos. As we mentioned in our introduction, this is not the first time we have visited such tragic events. Could you give us a breakdown of what has been happening in the last 20 years in terms of these type of eruptions of violence?
Yeah, thank you very much. Over the last 1 decade, we've experienced a violent confrontation across ethnic and religious fault lines. And basically, the issue boils down to that of indigeneity or citizenship. And I think it forms part of the national question that Nigerians all over are clamoring for, that there is need to address issues, particularly those that relate to some gaps in the Nigerian constitution with respect to who is an indigene and who is a settler. And unfortunately, it is taking a very new and further dimension in Jos with respect to the killings that we have experienced. And one other dimension too that this killing have taken is the fact that there are people who also benefit tremendously from this conflict because the elite use this conflict, use ethnicity and religion to mobilize and also manipulate the youth.
Okay, Chris, sorry to interrupt you there. We're going to go on in the second part of our discussion to look more clearly at the dynamics at play and what potential solutions there could be. But if I could come to you, Femi, is it too simplistic, as many reports say, that this conflict is between Christians and Muslims?
It goes well beyond Christians and Muslims, you know, like Chris was alluding to there. You've got the issue of religion, which is one of the issues at stake here, but there's also an issue in terms of ethnicity as well. But even going one step beyond that, it's also the issue of nationality in terms of, you know, the issue of the national question, as in, is one a settler, you know, in the state, or is one an indigene in the state? But what I also believe as well is that if you really look at these things a lot more, you know, a lot more deeply, there's usually and there's always a thought, you know, finger somewhere that is actually manipulating, you know, that people in these various parts of the country for whatever reasons they are, in terms of whether it is for political relevance, whether it is for, you know, whatever the factor might be.
For different motives,
you know, it goes well beyond, you know, Christian Muslim crisis.
Okay, well, in terms of responding to the immediate danger that those people faced, if I could come to you, Mohammed, there's been much criticism of the governing authorities and their response. You know, there's been accusations of them having indifference based on their religious prejudices. I mean, give us a picture of how valid this criticism might be.
It is valid. There is definitely, there was definitely very slow response, and there is what you will call government inaction in tackling these issues, despite the fact that Jos and other parts of the country have a history of violence. And the intelligence points to the fact that there will be things like this, and yet no action was taken. Secondly, even when there was supposed to be a curfew, it was not, to the best of my knowledge, enforced, and this unfortunately led to the killings of March the 7th. But the gap in governance, there is this problems with government that we have in different parts of Nigeria that has led to a breakdown of trust between nationalities, and this is where government should have come in to make sure they cement and they protect people, their lives and property.
Well, if I could come back to you, Chris, we are aware that the governor of Plateau State, where you are, Jonah Jang, has tried to exonerate his government by putting the blame on the military commander. So, from your perspective and what you're hearing, you know, on the street in terms of what people think, who is ultimately culpable in this situation?
Yeah, basically, even the people themselves are confused. That is, the governor himself is the chief officer of the state, but the constitution does not give him power to deploy the military or whatever security apparatus that is concerned with mitigating or enforcing peace in the state. And that is a major gap in the constitution. And at that level, you find also people now asking, then who is really in charge? Because if the governor is the chief security officer of the state, and he doesn't have powers to deploy security in areas where there are threats to law and order, then it constitutes a major problem, and then this issue needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. And talking of addressing it, sorry to interrupt you.